It's amazing how I could be making videos about mushrooms because I used to hate mushrooms, and that was simply down to the fact that they are a proper fungi and they do not belong to the plant group at all. But it was in the recent years when I discovered that mushrooms are absolutely brilliant for a low carb diet, which would help aid weight loss, especially in women like me who really struggle to lose any weight at all. I hope you like my creamy mushroom video, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you do. So we start our recipe with 2 medium-sized onions, 1 whole bulb of garlic and chopped button mushrooms. So there might be a bit of controversy about the use of onions here in a low-carb diet, but to be honest, we feel that the carbs from onions are really negligible and should be manageable with a low-carb diet, because taste is also very important when it comes to the food you eat, isn't it? So here I've chopped my onions into medium-sized pieces, as you can see, and this is because the size really does not matter. I've switched on my burner and placed a medium-sized pan on it with a tiny block, about 7 grams of pasteurized butter into the pan. What I would also do is add 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and this is purely to not have a burnt buttery taste to our final recipe. And adding oil into the butter will not allow the butter to completely burn. Now at this point I go ahead and add the chopped garlic into the frothy butter oil mixture in the pan and let it just fry for a little while until it turns golden brown. Keep giving it a good mix so that they don't completely burn off, because at this stage it is quite easy to get it burned as you're also on a high flame. So once you notice that your garlic has turned golden brown, it's time to add your chopped onions in there. Now here I've added all of those 2 medium-sized onions with a bit of sea salt for taste. Now you got to be a bit cautious when you add salt in here, because for some reason my mushroom recipe becomes overly salted sometimes. So it's just about half a teaspoon of what I've added. I go ahead and then use my hand blender to give all that onion and garlicky mixture a paste-like texture, and this is because I do not like to bite the onions or the garlic as I have my mushrooms. And now you do your last and final ingredient, which is your chopped mushrooms. At this point, you really do not need to add anything else other than just mushrooms and a little bit of ground pepper and paprika as well if you'd like, but I'm not doing that here. You do not need to add any water into this mixture. Now, this is because mushrooms contain 92% water with just 1 gram of net carbs and just 2 grams of protein. So you really do not need to add any water. Now in about 2 or 3 minutes since you've added the mushrooms, you'd start noticing all of that water oozing out of it by itself. So you just need to let it sit there and cook in its own water for a little while. In about 10 minutes you see that almost all water has started to evaporate. You can't really see much anymore, and at this point you go ahead and add your fresh cream. Now this is one of those ingredients which I forgot to mention in my initial introduction, but this is what will add the creamy texture into your creamy mushroom recipe. Now, these little fungi do not really belong to the classification of vegetables, and that's because they are fungi. And however, they are so nutritionally rich. The amount of copper, which is one of the trace minerals and hard to find in other food. And also, did you know that mushrooms have one of the highest amount of vitamin D from the vegan food category, and this is after sunlight. You let it simmer for another 5 minutes in low flame, and there you go. Your creamy mushroom recipe is all ready to be served. Now, to be honest, this recipe goes best with toast, and you could call it mushroom on toast, but this is obviously not compatible if you are on a low carb lifestyle. So I'd go ahead and garnish with a bit of parsley. You could also use some chives instead. If you do know of any other variation to this particular recipe, please comment below.